Hello and a very warm welcome to the Adventure Show. This month we're in Fraserburgh for the annual British Kite Surfing Wave Master Championships. As you can see, the surf is up and this promises to be a white-knuckled, adrenaline-filled, action-packed cracker of a competition. Look at the size of that!
This year's competition is especially important because the last few were cancelled due to poor weather conditions. The winner of this event will take the overall championship.
As with all surfing competitions, we're at the mercy of the weather, which means the whole structure of the event can change at a moment's notice just to take advantage of the best conditions. It's going to keep the surfers and us on our toes.
We're expecting maybe 50 knots and 6 to 8 foot waves, so it should be interesting as the day goes on.
Trying to get out before it gets too wild and too windy.
Hold on to anything stationary or bolt it into the ground.
So it promises to be a challenging adventure show for all of us. Kite surfing is fast, furious and potentially dangerous. So in order to learn how to kite surf safely, I've volunteered Desiree. But she couldn't have done it without my help.
Lost all feeling in my fingers. Anytime you're ready, Ms. Wilson.
Also in this month's programme, we'll be going behind the scenes with the world's premier wilderness first aid course.
We don't have enough O2 to last until evacuation unless we turn it down to about 6 now.
And we'll be joining Cameron McNeish as he takes us up a little-known peak on the Isle of Skye.
Wow, that's steep.
But first, to the kite surfing, and the excitement is really starting to build. The competition is over 3 rounds, and the winner is the kite surfer with the most points after those 3 rounds. So right from the very start, the pressure is on.
It's the butterflies, it's the nerves, and that's why we do it, you know, because if you don't have that, then you shouldn't be competing.
I do get a bit slightly stressed sometimes. I'd much rather go and have a nice free ride somewhere, but the competitions obviously give me opportunities to travel the world.
I don't really do competitions, I just kind of happen to be here because I'm on holiday at the moment.
The seconds are counting down, you know, Big Ben is counting down, and you've got to put all that experience in those little 10 minutes.
Around 15 years ago, 2 Frenchmen had the idea of strapping a kite to a board and heading out to sea. But it took 5 years to perfect the equipment, so the first kite surf only went on sale in 1999.
Its growth over the last 10 years has been quite immense. I mean, 10 years ago there was 100 people doing it. Now we're estimating numbers of about 10,000. So it has grown quite a lot, but it's a particular kind of person, you know, an adventurer person that wants to do it, try new things, and it's a lovely, exciting sport.
You can ride big boards, you can ride small boards. You don't have to be the fittest person on the planet to do the sport. You know, unlike surfing, you ride away for 30 seconds and then you've got to paddle for about 10 minutes, 20 minutes to get back to the outside, where in kiteboarding, you're riding all the time.
Right then, we'll see how it goes, eh? Your lines are about 25, 27 metres long, so you do need a bit of space to do it, obviously. You don't want to be too close to everybody, but you can ride pretty tight. Once you're experienced, you can ride through people quite well without tangling up. We don't get many collisions. Good luck.
It looks absolutely fantastic, but it looks tricky because obviously the power in the kites is hard enough and to control, but the very fact that you're going to be on a surfboard and surfing too, I think you'd have to spend a while being good with your kite and knowing exactly where to put it and what to do with it before you get anywhere near just strapping a board onto your feet. But it does look absolutely amazing.
When you start out, it can be a lot of messing about because you've got loads of lines you've got to lay out on the ground, and you sometimes get in a tangle and there's loads of kit. So it can be quite daunting at first, and it's one of these things. I always think it's like driving a car. You're always thinking about where the kite is and watching it's not going to fall, and usually when you're looking at the kite something goes wrong with the board, but the more you do it, it just becomes instinctive. Then you stop looking at the kite and you can focus on the board more, and I think that's when you really start to progress.
It's the first year the British Wave Master Championship's been held in Scotland, and competitors have travelled to Fraserburgh from all corners of the UK. Most of them haven't been this far north before, but they're impressed with what's on offer.
Just come back from living in Australia, in my local beach in Australia. I described it to my mate as a cold version. It's like Australia with penguins and icebergs. No, seriously, it's a beautiful venue. And the hospitality, everything we've had, it's excellent. I shall be coming again and again with friends, definitely. A hidden jewel.
It's very raw, very natural, and kind of what you want, really. And I can only assume it's not going to be that busy either, which is quite nice.
It looks amazing. I rocked up this morning. I actually got here really late. I drove up from Newcastle, and this morning when the sun came up, it's just almost like an amphitheatre around here, you know. And we'll see what it does for the next few days. I'll let you know.
I think it's going to get more well known, this venue. I think there's going to be a lot of gossip on the forums and the internet, because it's very rare that you get the waves with the correct wind angle. And I can see the potential. This is a world-class venue.
This competition is made up of 3 rounds. There's a winner for each round, but the 2009 champion will be the kite surfer who's achieved the highest score overall.
Fueling up for the day. Bacon butties.
We'll be on to the haggis, neeps and tatties in a couple of hours.
Whatever that means. Because that's Japanese to me. Haggis, neeps and tatties.
And there's still all to play for as the men line up for the 3rd round of the championship. Unlike most sports, the fewer points you get, the better. In round 1, Will Bennett led with 0.7 points. He's a firm favourite, having been Wave Master champion for the last 2 years. Second was Richard Sills with 2 points, and Neil Gent was in 3rd place with 3 points. But in the 2nd round it was all change. Richard Sills managed the 3rd place with 3 points, Will Bennett slipped to 2nd with 2, and Lee Harvey topped the class with a 0.7 points. He's made the long journey north from Cornwall, and so far every mile has been worth the effort.
Really pleased that the long drive has been worth it.
You've come all the way up from Cornwall just to compete?
Yeah, I pretty much live at Land's End. We went to Thursday on the way because there was good surf, so I thought coming this far we better go to one of the best places in Europe for surfing. So I pretty much done Land's End to John O'Groats and did 1,100 miles just to get here. But we've got waves and it's windy, so I'm happy.
And in the first heat of round 3, Lee Harvey is in yellow. He's competing against Dave Ibbotson in red and Chris Simpson's in green.
Extremely exhilarating. It's probably one of the best feelings you can have, I would have thought, when you're set on a really nice wave and running in. It feels absolutely fantastic.
Every time you pick up a wave, it's different. You have to really read the wave. But a place like this, you get really deep swells coming through, really heavy swells. And they just kind of sweep into the bay, so you can pick them up a long way out, sort of ride in with them. They just break perfectly, and they're quite heavy waves. So every time you pick a wave up, if you get it wrong, you're going to get a bit of a rinsing. Gets the old adrenaline going, gets the heart rushing, and it's just brilliant being out there amongst it.
The sport's got so much variety. It's got something for everyone, and it's really easy. You can be a 10-year-old kid, or you can be a 65-year-old guy, and everybody can do it.
Well, not quite everyone, because right now Chris Simpson's in trouble. He's a kite surfing instructor from Dorset, but today's increasing swell has got the better of him. Cornish fisherman Lee Harvey knows the sea backwards, and he's definitely looking confident on that wave. It makes it look so easy, riding on the crest and then off into the shallows. So what can Dave Ibbotson do? Well, that's looking pretty good, but he does seem to be struggling to hang on to it. Still, a nice ride, and that's a great turn to finish with. So now it's up to the judges, and the verdict is that Lee Harvey has caught the best waves and made the most of them. He'll go straight through to the semi-finals, but second place Dave Ibbotson goes through to a runners-up heat and another chance for a place in the semis. And in the second heat it's Neil Gent in red, Richard Sills in yellow and Gareth Morgan in green. And it's Gareth Morgan from Pembrokeshire catching an early wave. One of the skills in this sport is that once you're up and riding on the surf, you need to let the board, not the kite, provide the power. Catching a wave now is Richard Sills. He's originally from South Africa, now has made his home in Newcastle. He used to be a professional surfer, but has now crossed over to this sport.
it's peaceful, it's tranquil. The noise is only the skimmering you hear from your fins. It's something like a shimmer, like tick, 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 tick. And the kites is like a swishing noise through the air. It's very quiet. And you can go as long as you want, until the wave dissipates. And then as soon as you finish the ride, you flick the kite the other way and actually go back onto the outside, which is beyond the breakers. It's like a repertoire, you can just keep going.
And here's Neil Gent. That's a very good choice of wave with nice turns at the top. Neil's one of the pioneers of British kite surfing. His background's in windsurfing, but he's made a smooth transition to kiting. He's certainly looking in control in this heat and in contention for a top spot. And that's the end of this second heat in round 3. And it's Richard Sills who takes first place. He'll go straight through to the semi-finals. Neil Gent's in second place. He goes through to the runners-up heat, while Gareth Morgan came in third. And in the lineup for the third heat is local lad George Noble from here in Fraserburgh. He's competing against Jonathan Elman-Brown, who's travelled up from Dorset, and the current champion Will Bennett. But surprisingly, Will's not feeling entirely confident.
Feeling a little bit wobbly, but I think that's the conditions more than anything else. It's quite challenging out there today.
What are the conditions sort of looking like just now then?
Well, today, this morning, it's a really nice swell. It's overhead high, but it's not a lot of wind, which is why I'm having to really try and keep this kite in the sky. But last night, sleeping in my tent, it must have been 50-mile-an-hour wind out there. My tent nearly flew away. I had to go and sleep in the laundry room.
And I know exactly how he feels. So the kite surfers hit the water for the last of these initial heats. It's Jonathan Elman-Brown up first, and he's looking pretty good. He's got a confident style with a consistent ride.
Trying to do some big manoeuvres in the most critical part of the wave, and then riding the wave all the way in. And when you get the right wave, and your feet are in the right place on the board, and the wind's good on your kite, then it's nothing like it. You can just hammer it all the way down the line and then have a scream of the time.
Local lad George Noble is next to tackle the surf. Like some of the other competitors, he was originally a surfer and now takes part in both sports, although he's comparatively new to wave riding.
On a surfboard you're going a lot slower, and sometimes if a wave breaks in front of you and you got loads of the whitewater breaking, if you're surfing that's your wave over. But if you're kite surfing you can just you've got the power in the kite, so you can actually just go round the bit to the next wave and you can just continue riding like you wouldn't be able to do in surfing.
And here's last year's kite surfing champion Will Bennett, and this year he's going to have to fight to retain his title.
I think there's any number of us could win it. Obviously I'd like to get it for the third time, would be really satisfying for me, but the level's getting higher and higher and higher all the time. So I think it's not going to be a walk in the park by any stretch of the imagination.
So time's nearly up for this heat, and George Noble's having problems there, struggling in the shallows. This looks like a good final wave though for Jonathan Elman-Brown. Oh, he's down though. Another ducking. And that's it, the flag's up. Heat is over. And the judges say it's George Noble from Fraserburgh in third place, with Jonathan Elman-Brown coming in second. He'll go through to the runners-up heat, while Will Bennett, who takes first place, goes straight onto the semi-finals. And we'll be back with all the action here in Fraserburgh shortly, but right now we're joining Cameron McNeish for his monthly expedition into the hills.
I'm in the tiny hamlet of Camastunavig on the east coast of the Isle of Skye. And today I'm going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to climb a hill for the adventure show on which I have never ever set foot in my life before. And if you don't mind giving me just a few moments, I just have to check the map just to find out how we get from here through the houses actually onto the hill itself. Aha! Well, that's a good clue. So why am I taking on a walk that I've never actually done before myself? Well, sometimes, it's nice to climb a hill, not because it's a Munro or a Corbett or on any of the mountain lists, but because you simply just fancy it. It just takes your fancy. And this hill, Ben Chinovig, on the east coast of Skye, I've seen it so many times, and I've always thought to myself, I must go and climb that wee hill one day. Wow, that's steep. Chinovig is part of a long basalt escarpment that actually rises beyond the very tip of the Trotternish Peninsula, follows the peninsula right down past Portree and goes right down to the shores of Loch Sligican in the south. Now the slopes rise fairly gently up from the west, get to a peak and then fall precipitously right down here into the Sound of Rassay. So it means when you do this walk you can follow this cliff line all the way up to the summit, and it's very, very dramatic. Ben Chinovig's only 1,355 feet. It's pretty minuscule in terms of the mountains here on Skye. But if you took this hill and you put it, say, in the Lake District, then I bet you there'd be dozens and dozens of people on it every day. Now, the Braes was the locality for what some people would say was the last battle on British soil. That took place in 1882. There had been long-standing disputes with the crofters over grazing rights, and eventually the landowner became quite frustrated and brought 50 policemen north from the City of Glasgow police force to try and sort out these disputes. And what occurred was a raging battle with the crofters on one side with sticks and stones, and the policemen on the other with their truncheons. 5 men were arrested and taken to Inverness, and a number of people were injured. And really the outcome of that battle was a public inquiry called for by Prime Minister Gladstone. And the result of that was a document called the Napier Report, which really more or less defined crofting as we know it today. Chinovig will be familiar to most people as the big mountain that dominates the south side of Portree Bay. And indeed, you can see Portree and the bay from the summit on a clear day. You kind of look right down, almost right into the town. Portree used to be called Kiltarraglen, but the name was changed in 1540 after a visit by King James V. The town and the bay were then renamed Port and Ree, which is the port of royalty, or the port of the kings. Looks like the summit just ahead. At last. Wow, here we are, 1,355 feet above sea level. And I'll tell you, this mountain seems almost twice that height. On a day like this, when it's really misty and cloudy and you can't see very much, there's false summit after false summit after false summit, and you never think you're getting to the top. So I was mighty relieved to see this old trig point on the actual summit. I wish I could tell you a wee bit about the views, but I can't see very much. Trotternish is that way, I know that, and the Coolin's down that way, and Rassay's behind me. But other than that, I can't see too much today. But I can tell you, if you want to see some really spectacular views of the Isle of Skye, I hope you'll join me for an Adventure Show Christmas special, where I'll be taking a long walk through the Isle of Skye and visiting some of the most marvellous landscapes, not only in Scotland, but in the whole United Kingdom. But for the moment, we're up here in the cloud, and there is a silver lining to this particular cloud, because it means that I'm going to have to come back and climb this hill again on a good day, so that I can get the views. And not that I need an excuse to come and climb a hill for a second time, but I think that's as good an excuse as any.
As more and more people take to the hills, many of our most popular walks now need their own tender loving care. And high up that list is Ben Nevis. Approximately 160,000 make the long trek to Britain's highest summit each year. Everyone who gets there feels a real sense of achievement, but the thousands of pairs of feet put a huge strain on the delicate landscape of this mountain. As erosion takes hold, the path needs rebuilt,
and doing so creates a job almost as big as the hill itself.
Over the years, the path gets wider and wider. It damages what's an important environmental area up here. So we really do now have to bring the helicopter in with stone from the other side of the bend to repair this track. It's very specialised work. People don't realise when they just see workmen moving stone on the path, but it's a very skilled and very specialised work.
We're taking the rock out of the bag. We get to choose the best rocks for the bit of pitching we're doing at the moment, and it makes it a lot easier for the joins and stuff, so you can see what you're working with. It's not too bad on a day like this, it's not too windy, you know, but if the wind's howling and the rain's lashing down in your face, it makes it a wee bit more difficult, you know.
It takes quite a wee while to pick it up, maybe a few years to get really fast at it. I mean, most people will pick up the actual skills quite quickly, but it's getting fast at it, I think, is the knack. And being, you know, physically it's quite demanding, especially here because these are big rocks we'll be using. Here I think we've got 500 metres will be purely by hand. All the cross drains, the water bars will all be hand built. Sections with a lesser gradient will be constructed by machine. I think that comes to about 900 metres.
Rather than a long walk down at the end of each day, the path builders live at the halfway lock-in. This is as challenging as the work itself.
I've been working for Boyd for 4 years now, so but this has been one of the hardest jobs that we've had to do. Just with the living accommodations, you know, it's normally when you get a hard job, you've got a nice farmhouse or something to come down to, but this is pushing it to the limits. We all take turns at making the dinner each night. Somebody takes turns at washing the dishes. By the time you get your dinner, all you want to do is maybe have a read a book, and then you crash out for the rest of the night. You're up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then that's you off, start all again. No buses or taxis here, huh? You don't actually feel it until you stop at night. When you stop moving, you do seize up a wee bit. And of course, there's no hot bath to soak in. So you just have to be careful, more or less. They tell you to lift with your knees, but as you've seen there, it's kind of difficult to get into the bag and lift up these stones properly, you know.
Once you've got your stones in place and the path's pretty much built, you just need to fill up all the gaps, and you try and fill in as you go. Well, you've got plenty of room, but you will always leave small gaps in the rock. Water gets in and just starts eroding the path from beneath. You know, these paths need to stay for a couple of 100 years. So yeah, so basically just fill in all the little tiny gaps.
Well, I've been doing it for 7 years, and I'm still not great. So there is skill involved in building with stone. You kind of have to look at the shapes and put them in. It's like a very big jigsaw puzzle without a picture. So yeah, there is a skill there, but as I say, you can never learn it totally. You just keep on building.
Once it's finished, then we really hope to engage more volunteers, both local and visitors, to help us maintain the track. And I think that's the key to the future, engaging people to care and help us maintain the network of paths in this area.
Everyone I work with are a really great bunch of guys to work with. You know, we have a good time, and you know, it's a fantastic place to work when the weather's like this.
And the weather has stopped work on the path this year, but the team will be back in the spring to finish off the job.
Welcome back to Fraserburgh and the Wave Master Championships, and shortly we'll be getting down to the sharp end of the competition. But first we wanted to catch up with one of the judges and find out how you go about scoring an event like this.
The first thing is wave selection, how big the wave is, how clean it is. The next one is how close the rider is to the critical section, the part of the wave which is actually at the steepest and actually breaking over. Then it's length of ride, so how long the guy rides the wave, and then it's turns, so he's bottom turns, top turns, how critical those turns are. I mean, if he's going really vertical on the top turn, then he's going to score more points than, say, someone who's going a little bit more, sort of, so we say, genteel around the top turn. Then there's power, so how aggressive the turns are, how much power, how much spray is coming up out the back of the board. But my personal preference when I'm judging is you don't use the kite at all when you're on a wave, really. You use the kite to get in, you ride the wave, and you score the points.
How would the kite surfers know to choose the right wave? What would they be looking
that's
for?
Just experience. I'm basically looking for the slightly higher bit, the slightly darker bit in the swell line. and you kind of line yourself up for that. Now you can approach from many different angles. You can approach from behind the wave, which a surfer never could, because he sees it and he has to match his board speed to the wave. In kite surfing, this is the beauty of kite surfing, is you can pull in really hard, you can use the kite to pull yourself onto the wave, and then basically as soon as you're onto that wave you should be thinking about parking the kite.
The leading female competitor in this event is Helen Thompson from Tyree, who's the reigning British freestyle champion.
You just really are going out the back to see where the water's lifting and pick maybe like not the first or the second, maybe the third or the fourth is going to be a bigger wave, and then try and drive and get onto it to ride it in.
Also giving Helen a run for her money is local Fraserburgh lass Maggie Cleave, who comes from a background in snow kiting. So it's going to be a really exciting female event.
You get to a point where you don't need to think about the kite a whole lot. You're using, certainly in the waves, you're using the kite to get you out there. So unlike the surfers that have to paddle out, we can get out really quickly with minimum effort. And then you've got the kite there as your backup. So if the wave closes and maybe it's just going to dump on you, you get the power back in the kite and run away basically.
The third woman here today is a newcomer to the competition scene. Ali Hendry lives in Edinburgh and was originally a surfer. Now she's totally hooked on this sport.
It's amazing. You just feel kind of free, and because there's not you're not attached to a boat, you're not got an engine, you're in control of where you go. It's just great just to cruise about and be on the sea.
And in the first round of this year's Wave Master Championship, Ali Hendry came in third, with Maggie Cleave taking second place. But out in the lead, the clear winner was Helen Thompson from Tyree. The Adventure Show first caught up with Helen in 2005, when she was just learning how to kite surf.
Did do an art course and thought I was going to go down the art line, but I've always been into my sports, especially my water sports, wakeboarding and windsurfing.
Since then, Helen's turned pro, and now she earns her living with her kite and board.
Been competing on the world circuit and all over the UK, so last 4 years has been basically just competition after competition.
And how doable is it to kind of make a living from kite surfing then?
It's not that easy. You've got to have support from sponsors, and every year you've got to approach new sponsors to get some funding. And because it's not actually recognised as a sport in the UK, it's actually a dangerous pastime.
Right.
It's quite difficult to encourage people to sponsor you.
In terms of you're travelling around the world, what's your year like? Are you spending a lot of time in the UK, or are you doing an awful lot of travelling?
Between March and November, I tend to be outside the UK. This year I was in Germany and France. Last year I was in Greece and Egypt. So it's just really, if I've got the funding to go to the event, I'll go and compete. So yeah, it's great. It's a great lifestyle. It's just getting to see the world, doing a sport that you really enjoy. So it's brilliant.
The wind speed is increasing as the day goes on, and conditions are getting tricky. Competitors are now anxious about what they'll find out there.
It doesn't look so intimidating when you're standing on the beach, but when you're actually out there trying to get out through the waves, it can be really intimidating, and especially when you're on such small kites, things happen very, very quickly.
So this is it, the women's final, with Helen Thompson in blue, Ali Hendry in yellow, and Maggie Cleave in green. And that looks like a good choice of wave for Helen. And a nice turn at the critical moment, in which she's down in the surf. She's struggling even to stand up. So, what can Ali do? She's had virtually no experience on the waves. Her ambition is just to catch one and ride it all the way in. These conditions are tough though. This really is a baptism of fire for Ali. And Maggie Cleave is struggling too. With unpredictable gusts, she's finding it hard even to stay upright, let alone get in some turns. Ali's up again, trying to get onto that wave. It's a big one. Oh, it must be pretty scary feeling the pressure of water looming up behind you. And she's just running out to the beach. With time running out, what can Maggie do though? She knows these waters really well. Can she use that knowledge to her advantage? On her way out, she's searching for that perfect wave. Quick change of direction to catch this one. Will it pay off? No, down again. So here's Helen moving back up the beach.
It's not alright, it's not finished yet. Only got about a minute to go.
A minute to go, the pressure's on, and a chance for one final wave, and it needs to be a good one. That's looking fine, not too overpowering. Stylish turn to stay on the crest. Will the wave develop again though? Yes, it does. Another nice turn. She's leading into it again. Oh, she's down. Oh no, she's up again. Nearly over again and chin back on the wave and heading onto the beach. What an amazing recovery.
That was great. Wild as anything. Yeah, really good. Happy. Much windier. Bit scary in places. Yeah, it was good. I'm pleased.
Yeah, it was a hoot. I think I was just told that I did actually catch a wave in that last round, so I've obtained my goal from this trip. So scared myself, but I've got there, so I'm glad I did it. Yeah.
I got a few good waves, I think, or a couple of all right ones at least. But no, I came back to the beach in one piece. I think that's the main thing today. So.
And in the results for the overall Wave Master Championship, Ali Henry was third, with Maggie Cleave hanging on to second place. And out in the lead, Helen Thompson becomes the 2009 Women's Wave Master Champion. But for her, it's not just about winning.
My friend Ali, she's one of the people that taught me to kite surf in the first place, so it was really nice to kite with her. And Maggie I've known for years as well, so it's more for the fun of it, really.
And now it's nearly time for the men's semi-finals. And first on the water, it'll be Dave Ibbotson from Darlington. He's up against South African Richard Sills. Yet there's more to this sport than just jumping on the board. For one thing, you have to decide which is your leading leg.
I'm a goofy footer. Goofy footer's right foot forward and natural footer's left foot forward, I would say in surfing. But in kite surfing and windsurfing, it's kind of like starboard, you can go pretty much any way around, which is like sort of ambidextrous surfing, going both ways. Actually, for a few years, I surfed the other way around. I surfed as a natural footer, and then I just realised, maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable the other way. So it's if you picture yourself running down a passageway and sliding either with your right foot forward, you're a goofy footer. Or if you run down the passage and slide with your left foot forward, then you're a natural footer.
And as they take to the water, it's Richard Sills in yellow with Dave Ibbotson in blue. So it's Richard up first, and that looks like a powerful wave. Good turn, not quite at the critical section though. With the wind gusting, it's pretty tricky. A much better one there, right on the crest. He'll be pleased with that. Here's Dave now. That looks excellent. Can he hold on to it? Just. Richard again. The choice of wave is so important. That's looking good. No, he's down. So what can Dave Ibbotson do? Well, that looks pretty nice. He's struggling too, and a mouthful of water for him. Conditions are really wild, but these guys make it look so easy. That's a beautiful turn right at the top of the wave, but another crash for Richard. My goodness. So the heat is over, and this is going to be a really close call for the judges. And the verdict is, Richard Sills has just got the edge. He'll go straight through to the finals. But Dave Ibbotson will get another chance. He'll be pitted up against second place kiter from the other semi-final. And the winner of that heat also gets a place in the finals.
Back through the losers bracket again. You never know. I mean, we normally go kiting for 2-3 hours without a break, but it's a bit more intensive in the 10 minutes. It's almost worse. You come in, you stop, you settle down, cool down, and then you have to go again. It'd be better just to go out, stay out.
And in the second semi-final, there are three competitors. Neil Gent's in green, Lee Harvey's in red, and the current Wave Master champion, Will Bennett, is in yellow. It's a strong lineup. Lee Harvey won the second round and Will Bennett the first. And Lee Harvey taking on a great wave, with Will Bennett just behind. Doesn't look like there's much to choose between these two. But Will's kicking up some nice surf there. Both still up and riding. It's the length of the wave which counts as well. Neil Gent now. And that looks lovely. Some well executed turns. And it doesn't look totally at ease. That's better, well controlled. Balance is the key here. And he's lost it in the surf though. Lee Harvey. Stylish turn, nice and aggressive. You can feel the confidence he's gained from winning the second round. Another great turn. And another. Oh, this could be the winning wave for him. But here's Will Bennett. Not riding quite as aggressively as normal. Still nicely executed turns in the closing seconds of the heat. Keeping up on the crest. Oh, but he's over. Flat on his stomach. That looks pretty uncomfortable.
I felt a bit wobbly. I think it was just the fact the wind was really kind of punchy. But now it's really good. Like perfect 7 metre weather. and the swell with a pushing tide has really started picking up, so you can get some really nice long rides. It makes it a bit tricky getting back out again. If you come all the way in, you can regret it a little bit, but if you have a sneaky gap back out, you can get back out there.
So now it's up to the judges. And once again, Lee Harvey's had an amazing heat, beating fellow Cornishman Will Bennett to first place. So Lee will go straight into the finals. Coming in third, Neil Gent is out of the competition, while second place Bennett gets another chance. He'll be up against Dave Ibbotson in the small finals. Well, getting a kite in the air and taking on the waves here at Fraserburgh is definitely not for beginners, but you've got to start somewhere, so Des and I are going to get a lesson from coach Mark Davis.
The first thing is to pop the safety leash onto your wrist, and the main reason for this is that if you get too much power in the kite, just let go of the bar and the kite will fall out of the sky. Pull hard left and hard right, that's it, and now you can stand still. And at this point it's just a case of pulling left and right. The main tip is not to steer as if you were driving a car, but to push in and out. I'm going to put my hands on the bar as well, just inside your hands, and I'm going to try and generate some nice constant power, and we're both going to get a bit of pull.
Oh heavens, all the crew, the camera crew are all running for their lives.
There we go. What we're doing, by keeping the kite moving quickly, we're generating a nice constant pull from the kite. Practice with the foil kites like this for a good 15-20 hours before going out into the water, because once you've got a board out there as well, there's quite a lot to be thinking about. There we go, and we'll stop there before we get too close to the water. Okay. Could you just pop that one down, Doogie, and pop some sand on it?
Great fun, that's it. Look at the size of this one here, 6 metres. Pretty good chance you could get dragged along the beach. I wouldn't laugh at all if that happened. That would be terrible, wouldn't it? That would be awful. Lost all feeling in my fingers. Anytime you're ready, Ms. Wilson.
It's an amazing feeling to be out on the water, using the power of the wind to perform jumps if people are wanting to jump, and get up into the air with the kites and do tricks. It's just an amazing feeling. Potentially the kites have the power to lift people quite high off the floor and also to drag people quite a long way. You're going to get wet in a minute. You can go pretty fast. Kite surfers are now challenging for speed records in sailing as well. Pull hard right, that's it. Push away and then pull left. Brilliant.
I think the coach is doing all the wrong things there. He's pulling her back up the beach, keeping her away from the water. Where's the fun in that? Dragged into the water, now that's funny.
So what sort of wind speed would make something like this out of your control?
This particular kite, for someone of your size, once you get above 20-25 mile an hour, you're really going to struggle to control it.
Okay.
She's getting closer to the water, which means so am I. I think if it lands in the water, she can go and get it herself.
Oh, I could stay here all day. This is just great.
Do you know what? I've had enough. You're on your own.
So that's Desiree well on the way to mastering the intricacies of controlling the kite. Next year, she might get onto the board. Of course, I could have done it in a few minutes, but there's no fun in that. Now back to dry land. From being a bold experiment to becoming one of the best outdoor places in the world, Glenmore Lodge leads the way in all things outdoors. Now the Adventure Show has joined forces with the folk from the lodge to give you the lowdown from Scotland's outdoor centre. Between finishing summer courses and gearing up for the winter, the lodge plays host to the world's premier wilderness first aid course. And as we discovered, it's not for the faint-hearted.
The course really brings together a whole bunch of people from all over the world. Doctors, surgeons, people who specialise in wilderness trauma and wilderness medical problems. The whole emphasis of this week is to take people's medical knowledge to a higher level than first aid. And then wherever they will be in the world, apply the principles of that knowledge to the situations and their surroundings that they may be in, whether it's at high altitude, in a hot desert or a jungle or on the ocean somewhere.
Like, how slippery is it?
It's slippery. You can get access around
the left side.
The students are going to be going through a number of evening scenarios, really difficult problems or medical problems or trauma problems that's going on with the patients, and that's really the big main objective.
How you doing? Let's just keep this, just keep it, just hold.
Get it off my leg!
No bother, Kirsty.
Get off my leg!
Listen.
I'm not much of an actor, but as the years have gone by, I'll shout, and if they hurt me, I'll hit them back, and I'll kick, and I'll squeal, and we'll make it as real as possible.
Don't worry, Kirsty.
Dr. Rebecca Lindley is an expert in wilderness first aid. She makes a long journey to Scotland each year to be part of the training faculty.
Where I work at home in Canada is a very small place. We're about 2.5 hours from a big hospital, 2.5 hours from any kind of surgery, and so we often do wilderness emergency care, even in our own little A&E. We have no lab services, no x-ray, etc. And then we also work with the ski patrol on one of the local mountains, and we work with search and rescue team as well. Usually when you're on the hill, you're kind of involved with anywhere between 5 and 8 incidents in a day, and we're only called to the more serious ones, so yeah, it can be quite busy.
Yeah, don't ever leave your bag. Don't ever get separated from your bag.
This is as realistic as possible. So if there's blood on the patient from an injury, you'll see blood. You can cut their pant legs open, you can strap, you can do everything exactly as you would do. They get in there and they almost forget that this is not a real patient. And you see that on their faces sometimes, and you see the panic when something starts to happen. And that's good, because that's part of that mental rehearsal. If they felt the panic in the scenario, then they'll have experienced that previously. They work through the panic. That means they'll work through the panic when it comes in a real situation.
I'm a GP working in Dunoon in Argyll, but really trying to do it in the outside environment is really completely different, a whole new set of problems, as well as all your environmental factors, just simple things like trying to get people's clothes off to examine them properly, take a good look, and trying to get people moved from wherever they've had their accident to a convenient place when they're not just sort of laid out in front of you on a bed. It suddenly becomes virtually impossible if you don't really know what you're doing, and that's been an amazing help doing this course.
Simon, what age are you, Simon? 30. 30? Not too far off the same age as me, Simon. Okay, so we're going to help you.
My scenario was as a biker, came over the handlebars, and I injured my elbow with an open wound on the elbow, and also injury on my chest as well. The chest injury was quite a big internal injury, and the aim for this was to see if they would pick up on the injury and, of course, my level of consciousness by dropping it as we went along.
Oh, don't worry, we'll get you out of here soon, and just you hang in there, all right? Get you well looked after.
It's quite emotional for us, because we started at that point really empathising with our casualty, and we're very acutely aware that the decisions we're making will affect their final outcome. And after a couple of minutes, you forget that it's role play and it's a real person with real thoughts and feelings.
Do we have any pain relief?
Yes, I can get you some pain relief. What would you like? There's stuff with breath sounds.
And you get really quite stressed, the blood pressure's going up, the pulse is racing, and you want to do the best for them. So it is actually really quite dynamic, and tempers get a little bit raised, and people have different ideas of how it ought to be done. So it is quite intense.
We don't have enough O2 to last until evacuation unless we turn it down to about 6 now.
Yes.
Okay?
Definitely.
You happy with that
Yes.
decision? Okay, fine. O2 down to 6.
6 beats per minute.
That's it, yeah, correct.
The response we get from students at the end of the week is generally one of relief because we hope they all pass. And not all students will pass this week, but we hope they will. Whilst we're here for 7 days in this beautiful part of the world in the Cairngorms and at Glenmore Lodge, we've got to apply every ounce of our energy in there to try and get our experience over to these people. So they'll be exhausted, and so will the faculty.
And if you're involved in medicine in the outdoors, you can find out more about upgrading your skills from the Wilderness Emergency Medical Services Institute. Simply log on to www.wemc-europe.org. And we'll be back at Glenmore Lodge in the next Adventure Show. Welcome back to Fraserburgh and the British Kite Surfing Wave Master Championship. Conditions here are sunny and blustery to say the least. 50-mile-an-hour gusts out there at the moment, so although from time to time this sport can look really graceful, smooth and almost balletic, it can also take you to the edge.
You do hear some horror stories. It tends to be folk kind of giving it a shot with not much knowledge and not knowing much about it. Windsurfing, if things are going wrong, you drop your sail, you've stopped. Kiting, you can get flown away basically.
The wind becomes really, really gusty and you make a mistake, you crash your kite, the wind launches the kite up and you haven't got control of the kite and you just basically bounce up and down the water. It's quite an experience.
I just had a few scary moments when I went out. The wave spun my body round a couple of times, so I wasn't really sure when I got back up to the surface if my kite would be in the air or if it would be ditched, but luckily it was in the air, so I was fine.
Negligence, ignorance, that's danger, Being aware, being careful, having respect for other people, that's having fun.
It is an extreme sport and it can be dangerous. There's people that have been unfortunately killed participating in it. So the amount of safety and the organisation of the events is really important. We've got a safety craft out there. If anything goes wrong, he's there straight away to pick you up and rescue you.
The wave events are obviously the most dangerous because things do go wrong, as we all know. And all you can do by that is learn by them and try and keep it safe. And I'm obviously radio up so I can speak to the RNLI if I need to get people in. So we have got more than one way of rescuing people.
Now it's nearly time for the small final, and the winner here will gain a place in the final. Trying to hang on to his Wave Master title is former windsurfer Will Bennett. So, how did he get into this sport?
I've worked in windy places for years, teaching windsurfing, and saw this sport coming about. And at first, I liked the idea of it, but I was a hardcore windsurfer, so wasn't too keen to jump on board. And then I bit the bullet, went and had a lesson, and that was it. I never touched a windsurf kit again.
Really, you never went back on the boat?
No,
wow.
No. I had to sell it to pay for kites.
Pitted against Will in this heat is another ex-windsurfer, Dave Ibbotson.
A place like this, you get really deep swells coming through, really heavy swells. It's pretty wild up here as well, sort of wild and open and not many people around.
And conditions for the small final are looking great, plenty of wind and good swell. Will Bennett's trying to make the most of it. Nice turn there though, not in the crest of the wave though, he'll be looking for something more. Not this time, he's over into the surf. Here's Dave Ibbotson powering up. Right into the top of the wave, down out of it. He'll be looking to get back into it. That's the joy of these kites. You do get a second chance. Turning back in. And a lovely move to finish off with. So the pressure's on Will. He'll not want to miss out for a chance in the finals. And that's a small one. But he's getting in the moves. But the wave has flattened out now as he runs onto the shore. Needs to do something better. Bigger, get his teeth into maybe. So what can Dave Ibbotson do? That looks a powerful wave. A great turn on the crest, plenty of spray from the back of the board. Moving around now to pick it up again. And he's onto it. Back into calmer water. Once again, turning into the wave. Making the most of this one. And now it's a run out. All the way to the shore. Will Bennett, pressure on him, searching to pull off something great. That's not a bad start though, let's see what he can do. Oh, the wave looks like it's just breaking up. Oh, that's into the surf, there's the board. Where's Will? Oh, there he is, safe. And that's the end of the heat and a tough choice for the judges. And the decision is, Dave Ibbotson has the edge. He is through to the finals.
The wind is dying off now, as you can see, and I struggled and I made a wrong decision. I think I took a bigger board thinking I could get going, keep planing a bit better, stay upwind, which it did benefit me that way, but then I lost it because the board was too small for the actual waves I was on, so I couldn't control it once I was on the wave. But it's just, that's the way it goes.
Will is out of the running for this round. It'll be a 4th place for him. But with his good performance in the first 2 rounds, he could still take the overall championship. It all depends on who wins this heat. It's a complicated calculation.
Richard needs to win the overall competition. If he comes 2nd or 3rd, then Will still wins it. If I win and Richard comes 3rd, then I come 2nd and Will wins. So it's been a close comp, but it's really good conditions. The wind's getting light, but I'm looking forward to ripping up some waves. Yeah!
So in this final heat, it's Lee Harvey, Dave Ibbotson and Richard Sills from South Africa.
Feeling cold. You can see I'm still dressed up and nervous. It's always a nervous thing, competing. The wind's blowing really strong. It dies off really quickly. The waves are nice and solid. It's the arena is set. The matadors need to go and play. So let's try and have fun, eh?
And there's no doubting that Will's money is on fellow Cornishman Lee Harvey.
Go on, boy!
Cornish doing it for the Cornish massive.
So this is it, the final of round 3 of the 2009 Wave Master Championship. And it's Lee Harvey in green and Dave Ibbotson in yellow. There's no question Dave's had the hardest route to the final. He's straight back out onto the water after winning the small final. And finally, it's Richard Sills in red. He won both his other heats in this round, and if he's first in this one, he'll also take the championship title. And here's Lee Harvey, and conditions have definitely flattened off now. But that's a good turn at the crest of the wave. Trying to stay with it though, and up into it again. Nicely executed. Dave Ibbotson's running up. He's flying along there, almost out of control. Along the top, and turning just as the wave breaks. That should count for something. Round and into it again, turning at the top. Oh, but he's over. Still a good ride for Dave. Well, this looks much better for Lee Harvey. Lovely wave. He's getting in some good moves. But it's flattening out quickly. No, it's developing back again. Bit of a slalom there, but he needs to get back onto the crest of it. Turning in now. Oh, but he's out the back door. Richard Sills again. What can he do in these lighter conditions? He caught Will Bennett out, but that's looking good along the top there, into the white water. And a great turn right into the heart of it. Oh yeah, he's pleased with that one, quite right too. Dave Ibbotson's giving it everything he's got. He's an outsider in this competition, but he's doing extremely well. If he doesn't win today, he's certainly someone to watch out for in the future. And that's a good length of wave, and he's managing to stay near that critical section. And in the final few minutes of the heat, with that championship title in the balance, Richard Sills really needs to peel something out of the bag. That's a very good turn in this surf. But the waves flattened out again, not giving him much of a chance to do anything more. He'd be really disappointed with that one. So time's up. Now all the competitors can do is wait for the judges' verdict. First out of the water is Lee Harvey, and he's not too confident about his performance.
Not so good that time. Didn't really get any good ones. So don't think I won, but you never know.
What was it like out there?
Tricky. The wind's really dropped off and the waves got a bit bouncy. Shame we didn't get it done when it was a bit windier. Safe for everyone, so can't complain. Still good fun.
Some big waves. The wind was a bit up and down, but it was good, really good. Great fun. Pretty cold though.
How do you think you did?
I don't know, it was difficult to see the riders because when they were down sort of in between the waves you couldn't really see them. I don't know, at least third I guess. But hopefully better, but I'm not sure.
Wind was very light. I was a little underpowered, meaning my kite was too small. Maybe a schoolboy area, we see what happens. It wasn't easy.
What were the conditions like?
The waves are good, but the wind had backed off quite a bit. You know, it's one of those things. With kiting, it's all the elements, we've got to balance it all out, so it's still really good, man. They should name Fraserburgh the Windy City.
But that was a disappointing heat for Richard Sills. He finished third, gaining 3 points. Lee Harvey came in second with 2 points, and Dave Ibbotson took the top spot with 0.7 points.
I lost out in my semi, so then went straight into losers final, and then went straight from losers final into the final. So I've kind of done 3 or 4 heats in a row. So it's been pretty hard work, hard afternoon, but it's paid off. It's been worthwhile. So yeah, I'm really happy.
Judging wave events, it's always complicated and involves a number of factors. When the judges had completed their calculations, this is how they finished at the end of the week in Fraserburgh. Dave Ibbotson takes 4th place with a total of 9.7 points. Lee Harvey's in 3rd with 8.7. Richard Sills is in 2nd with 8, and with 6.7, Will Bennett comes in 1st overall to become Wave Master Champion for the 3rd year in a row. And it's all thanks to that 3rd round win from Dave Ibbotson.
Is that good for you, mate?
Yeah, really good.
Good stuff, buddy.
Today I feel like I've lost, but at the same time I feel really pleased to have had enough consistency to win it overall. 3rd time, so I'm really pleased with that. That was my goal, and we'll see what happens next year.
And that's almost it for this month's Adventure Show. Next time there'll be no clear, clean foaming water, but there will be lots of fresh mud at the Strathpuffer 24-hour mountain bike marathon. Now, the Adventure Shows had mixed fortunes at this event. We didn't do too badly the first year, but then I did have 3 people to help me. Then I tried it on my own and only managed 7 laps. So this time I've entered as a pair, and I'm determined things will go better. So I started my training early with a 65-mile blast round the Ullapool Challenge.
It's late September 2009. In 3.5 months, I'm taking on the Strathpuffer 24-hour mountain bike marathon once again. This is my preparation, and pretty extreme it is too. Well, at this point of the day I get fairly nervous. I have to say, any of these events are always great fun to do, but they're exhausting, and you always think of all the training you haven't done. Nearly 8,000 feet of climbing in this event, which is the bit I'm very worried about. Judy back, and maybe sometime. Push on. Push on. That start was really tough. The sort of 3 big hills at the start when you're not warmed up were really tricky. And I thought my lovely friends were going to stay and wait for me, but it turns out not. Just been on the flat. It's evil. I know there's some big climbs ahead, and my legs are starting to get a bit sore now. I was trying to catch this guy in front of me, but you know what? He can stay uncaught. Someone turn off the wind, please. Change gear. Turning the legs wasn't working. Change gear again. I feel like I'm going to throw up. The end hills were just evil. I was feeling really good up until the last maybe 10 miles, and it all just went horribly wrong. But what it does tell me is that between now and the Strathpuffer, I've got some work to do.
So I've been stepping up my training a notch or 3 for the Strathpuffer 24. Meanwhile, as Cameron McNeish mentioned earlier, we've a special edition of the Adventure Show next month over the holiday period, when Cameron will be walking through the wonderful Isle of Skye. From all of us though, in the meantime, it's goodbye for now.